Hey guys, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, and ciao to my foreign friends. And today I'm going to be talking about the cost of modern folders today. They're just unbelievable examples of modern technology, and we love them, don't we? And it's hard to imagine how a knife like this could be any better. But the cost of these things have just been soaring. And does the cost of these knives, the cost to you, what you pay for them, does it really cost that much to make these knives? Or are they kind of gouging us a little on these knives? So we're going to be looking at that. And I really wanted to do this video for the past 4 or 5 years, and just now getting around to doing it. But it took a lot of research, a lot of time to add up facts and figures and look at industry standards and things like that. It's
So look
really
at the
complicated
prices on
if
these
you've never
things.
run a business
$200,
or
$315,
been involved in
$600.
financial
Is that
analysis. It could be kind
really
of
a valid
intimidating
price
putting this
for
all together.
these knives?
But
Is
I've
that
already
what it
did that.
really
I'm going
costs them
to
to
keep
make?
it simple for you and use basic numbers so that you can follow this really easily. And I think it's going to be an eye-opening experience for you. So what I've done is I've put together 3 knives here for you. This is an Ontario Rat 1, this is a Recon 1, this is a ZT. And this kind of represents the broad spectrum of pricing that most of us would fit into, that most people buy knives at. And I'm going to give you an understanding of the cost involved in these knives before we go on to the more expensive knives. And matter of fact, I'm going to add one more. I'm going to add this knife here. It's a buck 864, I think. Yeah, buck 864. This is a very inexpensive knife. I paid $13 for it, but it's as large as all of these other knives. And this shows you what a big knife could be made for. There's nothing really wrong with this knife. It has aluminum um, handles on it. The blade stock is pretty thin on this knife, and the liner is pretty thin on this knife. But I think it would do well for you in any type of application that you wanted to put it in. But anyhow, that's our baseline, $13. So this Rat 1 in OS 8 cost me $40. $40 for this knife right here. And for the purpose of this discussion, guys, we're going to pretend this is a D2 blade because I couldn't price the OS 8. So Ontario makes a Rat 1 and D2, so it's a valid comparison. So $20 for that. This knife was $100. It's the first time I ever spent $100 for a knife. And mainly the reason is this is an S35VN blade. So kind of justify the additional cost in the knife. And also this is just an awesome knife. So up from that is a ZT. If you're not familiar with ZT, they build very robust, overbuilt knives, and you can kind of see that here. If you look at this knife in comparison to the Rat 1, which this is an awesome knife, and you can see it's everything's just thicker. The blade stock is thicker on this knife. You can see that right there. And so this is in the, I think this listed $170 when I bought it. And ZTs nowadays, the lowest is $188, and most of their models are well over $200. So what does it cost to make these knives? So long story short, I priced this knife at $21. is what the manufacturer cost of this knife is. And this knife, I priced at $29, so only $8 more for this knife with the S35VN steel. This knife here has the same steel, same handle material, G10, as the other knives, and this knife I priced at $34, mainly because the stock on the S35VN is a little thicker and the liners are a little thicker. So it added about $4 to the construction cost of this knife. All of these prices are based on retail pricing. So I went to a knife supply place and sourced all of these costs. I sourced the cost of the pins, the attaching hardware, the liners, the clips, everything you put on this knife, the G10, everything, the blade material. And then I put that all together and added employee costs and overhead to the pricing of the knives. And that's pretty much what I came up with on these knives. So the thing that's really startling here is the blade for this $40 knife costs $3 for this blade. And the blade for this super steel S35VN, which is absolutely incredible, I love it, but this blade costs just $12. So you're talking about a $9 increase for the steel in this knife. This one was $40, this one's $100. They're the same construction, same materials, G10, but because of the blade, they're charging $100 for this knife. That's quite a bit of increase when the material cost to build this knife was only $9 more. And that's kind of going to give you a clue to what the upper end knives are going to look like when we get into that. This knife right here I priced at $34, and I already mentioned that I paid it's a $170 knife. Essentially, these are all the same knives, and this one's $170, and the cost over these other knives is only $4 more. So you have to question, why are you paying $170 for this knife? And I think as you look at them, you can see, there's not a lot of differences in these knives. In fact, there's less parts on this ZT knife than there is here. And so the actual cost to produce the knife is probably a little more if it wasn't for the stock being bigger on that knife right there. So up in your screen right now, you can see that the cost for the different blade steels and what I'm talking about. And you can see that those blade steels, there's very little difference in the cost. And you don't have to take my word for it. I watched a video a while ago by Mike Stewart, and he was talking about this exact subject, how the cost for these super steels only adds $7 to $10 to the knife. So it's not the steel that is really causing the increase in these knives. It is what manufacturers are using to dupe you into thinking that the knife is worth that much more money, because they're only putting $9 to $10 upgrade in the knife, but they're doubling and tripling the prices on these knives. What you're looking at right now is a price list of handle materials. So this is G10, and to put this G10 on this knife, it costs $3.60. And the shocker here, as you look at that list that's up on the screen, is that carbon fiber. We all know how expensive carbon fiber is. Carbon fiber to put on this knife is $3.60. The cost is the same for the materials, but they're charging, if you put carbon fiber on a knife, and you're going to see that later in the video, if you put carbon fiber on a knife, they're adding $100 right away just because it's carbon fiber. The most expensive is handle material is titanium, and it is expensive. So, excuse me. So you look at the cost of putting handles on this knife, it's $3.60, but on this knife, it's $13. That's quite a bit more expensive, but the relative cost is low. So the difference between $3.60 and $13, you're talking $10 more in handle material, and you're talking $9 more in a blade material. And so it's this knife, the upgrades on this knife are only $20, but the price difference between these two knives is astronomical. And you could kind of, this is a bad example, but it's the only titanium knife I have. You could kind of get it with the milling and the anodization on this knife, but just regular titanium slab is $13. So, how do you justify the increase in cost on these knives? And so, now what I want to do is I want to look at a specific example here. And up on the screen right now, you can see that this is a Benchmade Freak. It's a mini Freak. And so it's a 3-inch blade, where the regular Freak is about, I think, a 3 and 7 inch blade on it. But almost all Benchmade knives come with a super steel. This is S30V. It's an old one. I think this came out after CPM 154. So the seals now are quite a bit more advanced than this steel, but Benchmade still offers it as a base on their knives. The handle material on this, if you look down in there, you can see like a plastic lettuce. That's what that is. It's a lettuce frame, and you have rubber put over that lettuce frame. What looks like an insert here is just part of that frame. So it's plastic with rubber on here. You can see in the picture that this lists at $123. And so when you go up from that, you can see that the upgrade with G10 in an M4 blade is $243. So that's a $120 increase. And all they did is put G10 on there. The truth is, over these materials here, as I mentioned before, you could put G10 slabs on this knife for $3.60. And so that's the upgrade cost, $3.60. The truth is, the difference between these two steels is $2. So S30 would be around $12, and S90, or I'm sorry, M4 would be around $14. And so it's only $2. So it's a $5 upgrade, but they're charging $120 more for the knife. The knives, by the way, are exactly the same. They're built the same. They're put together the same. They have the same attachment hardware if you look at them. And so there's no difference in the knives other than the material that they use. If you look at the next picture, that's a picture of another upgrade with carbon fiber. And it's a S90V blade. And the S90 is the same price as the M4 type steel. I think it's $14. I'm not looking at the picture right now. So again, the upgrade, remember I showed you the pictures before, that carbon fiber costs the same as G10. And so it's $3.60 to upgrade from this rubbery stuff. $3.60 plus the upgrade of the steel, which is $2, $5. But look at the price on that. $316. So that is an increase of $73 just because you put carbon fiber on the knife. The steels are very comparable, and so especially price wise. And so how do they justify charging $315 for that? Now, if you look at the next picture on here, you're going to see I took the MSRP on these knives, and the dealer, the retailer markup is up to 200%. And so if you take that dealer markup and divide it by 2, then you're going to get the price on that expensive knife of what it actually costs the dealer. And so on the carbon fiber one, that would be $175. And if you multiply that by 5, you look on that screen, that picture right there. If you multiply that by 5, that's 50% markup that the manufacturer puts on it. And so that brings the cost of the most expensive knife down to around $87 is what it costs to produce, or at least what they're saying it costs to produce. Same way with the this model here, the base model, $123. I think it was retailing for $145. So the dealer cost on that would be $80, and the cost of manufacture of this knife would be $40. Now, remember what I said these knives cost. Okay, $29. This $170 knife, I said cost around $34. So you can see those prices are in line with and consistent across the board with any knife that you look at. So this $123 only costs the manufacturer $40 to make. I think at $123, this knife is worth every bit of $123. This knife is not worth $315 in my opinion. So when you get up, I think in the 200, 250 range and above, what you're buying is a picture, not a knife anymore. So you're buying a piece of art. And if you want to spend $600 on that piece of art, fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the first kind of cool. But the question is the cost valid for what the knife can do? So I think once you get to $200, the increase in value on what these knives can do just don't justify the cost. In particular, if you're looking to get a super steel, a lot of times you're gravitating towards these knives. Maybe you buy a lower cost one. Maybe you get one in the $160 range. And there's no difference in these two knives. So finding a lower cost alternative like cold steel, where you can pick this knife up still for I think I priced this knife at $136. And if you wanted to get some super steel in a knife, these are really good options. You can also find it cheaper. So some of these Chinese knives, you can find them. I think the least I found super steel in is $80. I think that's what I found one for. This knife right here is a CV, and it's Damascus. Damascus is very expensive. To put a Damascus blade on a knife is about $80, my cost. So the other thing you have to remember about this is I'm talking about retail prices. I'm pricing this from a knife supplier, and that's going to be a lot more expensive than the manufacturer can produce a blade steel. Mike Stewart, in a discussion, the same discussion I mentioned before, he was talking about super steels. He said he pays $20 a pound for Bowler L-Max. Bowler L-Max is one of the most expensive steels you could get. I think if you're going to go above the cost of a Bowler L-Max blade, it would have to be Damascus. Damascus is tremendously expensive, and you can understand why. It's a mix of steels. It takes a long time to make. You can't just forge a Damascus blade. It has to be forged repeatedly again and again and folded to get those designs that you see in them. But you know, he's saying $20 a pound. It will cost me $27 to make a knife with Bowler LMAX blade, $27 for the blade, where he's buying a pound and can produce 12 blades um, with the same price, the same amount that he's paying. So, you know, these knife manufacturers are not paying what you're paying for materials to build a knife. And so they're like a 75% price reduction. They're buying 70,000, 100,000 pounds of steel. They're buying huge rolls of it. And when they buy handle material, they're buying immense quantities of it, and there's a savings in that, and there's a really good savings. So it doesn't cost the same thing to produce these knives as I would price them. Remember, I priced this knife at $34, this one at $29, and this one at 40 or 20 rather. So their cost actually would be below what I'm quoting you, substantially below it. So I just don't think you know, these knives going for 250, 300 are worth it. Now, if you get into a custom knife, that's different. Okay, you look at a custom knife, this thing, each part in this knife had to be made and hand fitted precisely into this knife. And you can understand that's going to take a lot more effort and skill to do that. A machine can't do it. Mostly these knives are made by machine now. Very few hands-on, basically hands-on to move the stuff around, clean it, and assemble it. But in a custom knife, you know, they're putting that thing together by hand. Also about this knife, this is 1 in 100. So the custom knife maker has to recover his costs within that 100 knives, where a manufacturer is making 30, 40, 50,000 of these knives, and that cost is spread out over all those, which lower the unit cost of the knife. So the more you make, the higher your production is, the less your costs are. You can spread them out. Most of this is not, this is CNC machine. So in all likelihood, this titanium was cut out, went down a conveyor, was placed by a robot on a CNC machine that did this. Then it hit the assembly line again, went down, was anodized again by machines. And it wasn't until all that process was done till a human ever picked the parts up and moved them somewhere else. So most of this stuff is done by machine, no human involvement. It's not very expensive to do at all. For guys who would say, oh yeah, the overhead costs are tremendous on CNC, you know, that's true. It's also true that when you're producing 30,000 of these knives and making tens of millions of dollars, that cost is going to be depreciated over time, and it's not what you think. The overhead on manufacturers traditionally is 20 to 25%. So if you had a $10 knife, for instance, 20% would be adding $250 to the knife. So the overhead costs are not what you think on these knives. It's not the most expensive part of these knives. And so I hope you found that video informative. I hope it helps you out maybe in some decisions that you have to make. They're just, it's hard to understate the beauty, the elegance, the functionality of these modern folders. They're just absolutely fantastic. But you know, they're going to lose me at the $200 price range, and it better be pretty nice. It better be a knife like this if I'm going to pay $250 for it. A knife like this with G10 scales, no, I'm not going to pay $315 for that. No way. And I can get this a lot cheaper in a different knife that's going to do the job just as well as this knife right here. So I appreciate you guys watching the video. Hope you found it informative. Remember, you'll know the truth. The truth will set you free. And, go ahead and subscribe, make a comment, like it. That'll help algorithms out. And I really appreciate you guys. Thanks.